When we think of prehistoric humans, we often imagine robust hunter-gatherers living in pristine, pollution-free environments. It is easy to assume that ancient peoples were free from the modern ailments that plague our society today. However, the archaeological record tells a completely different story. Long before the advent of cities, crowded populations, or written history, our ancestors were engaged in a silent, continuous battle against a wide variety of pathogens, parasites, and degenerative conditions. By examining fossilized bones, mummified remains, and ancient DNA, researchers can reconstruct the medical history of early humans. It turns out that prehistoric life was far from disease-free. In fact, many of the health challenges we face today have deep evolutionary roots that trace back hundreds of thousands of years. Let us step back into the deep past to see what diseases truly affected our ancestors. For millions of years, our hominin ancestors lived in small, nomadic bands. Because they were constantly moving, they managed to avoid many of the crowd diseases we suffer from today, like measles or smallpox, which require large, dense populations to survive. However, early humans were heavily affected by heirloom diseases. These are pathogens that we inherited directly from our primate ancestors, evolving alongside us. Chronic infections caused by bacteria, viruses, and parasites were constant companions. Head lice, body lice, and intestinal worms routinely plagued early foragers. Additionally, wounds sustained during hunting or daily activities frequently became infected with common soil and skin bacteria, such as Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. Without modern antibiotics, even a minor cut from a stone tool could lead to a systemic, life-threatening infection. As early humans interacted with their environment, they faced threats not just from tiny microbes, but also from the animals they hunted. Zoonotic diseases, pathogens that jump from animals to humans, were highly prevalent long before the domestication of livestock. While butchering a wild animal or processing hides, a hunter-gatherer could easily contract dangerous infections. One of the most widespread ancient threats was brucellosis, a bacterial infection often acquired from consuming raw meat or handling infected animal tissues. Archaeological evidence suggests that tuberculosis also plagued prehistoric populations, likely originating in wild animals before adapting to human hosts. These bacterial infections were chronic, slowly wearing down the individual's immune system, weakening their muscles and damaging their internal organs over many years. While soft tissues decompose over millennia, bones often preserve the permanent scars of prehistoric suffering. Osteoarchaeologists can read these skeletal clues to identify specific chronic conditions. Osteoarthritis, a degenerative joint disease, was incredibly common among prehistoric adults. The intense physical demands of a foraging lifestyle, walking long distances over rough terrain, carrying heavy animal carcasses, and processing raw materials placed immense stress on the spine, knees, and hips. Additionally, scientists frequently find evidence of cribra orbitalia, a condition that leaves porous, spongy lesions inside the eye sockets. This physical marker is a classic indicator of severe, chronic iron deficiency anemia, often caused by malnutrition, heavy loads of intestinal parasites, or long-term infectious diseases. Tooth decay is often considered a modern curse brought on by processed sugar, but prehistoric humans suffered from dental agony as well. While early hunter-gatherers had relatively low rates of cavities due to a low-sugar diet, their teeth faced heavy, destructive wear. Coarse diets filled with fibrous plants, grit from stone grinding tools, and using teeth as processing tools quickly stripped away protective enamel. Once the inner pulp of the tooth was exposed, bacteria moved in, causing excruciating dental abscesses and deep bone infections in the jaw. Life shifted dramatically around 10,000 years ago during the Neolithic Revolution, when humans transitioned from foraging to agriculture. While farming provided a more stable food supply, it fundamentally broke human health. Settling down in permanent villages meant living in close proximity to accumulated human waste and stagnant water, creating a perfect breeding ground for waterborne pathogens like cholera and typhoid. Domestication brought humans into constant daily contact with cattle, pigs, and poultry, allowing a flood of new animal viruses to mutate and jump species. Diseases like influenza, smallpox, and malaria began to ravage these newly crowded settlements, fundamentally reshaping human immunity and history forever.